She slammed her fist on my gate and shouted, "You can't park that truck here. This is HOA property." Her voice carried across the quiet street like a siren, dragging neighbors out of their windows. I didn't answer. I just leaned on the hood of my truck, calm, watching her scribble something on a paper that looked official. She slapped it against my fence and screamed, "You're evicted." Within minutes, flashing lights appeared. Karen had actually called the cops. She pointed at me like she was leading a raid. "Arrest him. He's trespassing," she barked, her eyes burning with false authority. The officers walked toward me, their hands resting on their belts, waiting to hear my side. I didn't move, didn't panic. Instead, I glanced at the so-called eviction notice still fluttering on my gate. The stamp was fake, the language laughable. But I stayed quiet, letting Karen dig her own hole deeper. Then, one of the cops asked, "Sir, do you live here?" Before I could answer, Karen jumped in, "No. His wife just moved out last week. This house belongs to the HOA now. He's got no rights." She looked so sure of herself, so eager to watch me get dragged away. I slowly reached into my jacket. The cops stiffened. Karen smirked, thinking she had won. But when I pulled out a black leather case and flipped it open, her face went pale. The officers leaned in, their eyes widening. Karen's smirk collapsed. "Wait, what is that?" she stammered, her voice cracking. I just looked at her, calm as ever, and said, "You just called the cops on a federal judge." Her jaw dropped. The crowd of neighbors that had gathered gasped. The cops exchanged glances. And one quietly muttered, "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step back." But Karen wasn't done yet. She didn't know this was only the beginning. Karen's eyes darted from the badge in my hand to the officers' faces, like she was trying to convince herself it was fake. "This is a trick," she shouted, her voice shaking now. "He's lying. He forged that badge, arrest him." The taller cop cleared his throat. "Ma'am, that's a federal credential. We can't ignore that." But Karen wasn't the type to back down. She lunged toward my fence, ripped the fake eviction notice from the wood, and waved it in the air like proof of her authority. "This is the law. He's violating HOA rules. His wife left, he doesn't belong here anymore. We decide what happens on this street." I tilted my head, almost amused. "Funny," I said slowly, "because this land never belonged to the HOA in the first place." The crowd of neighbors murmured. Karen froze. "What are you talking about?" I took a step closer to the gate, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut through the noise. "When my wife moved out, she didn't just walk away from this house. She signed it over. To me. Free and clear. And unlike your fake paperwork, I have the deed." Karen's face turned crimson. "Lies. That's impossible, this property is under HOA control." One of the officers frowned, taking the paper from her hand. He turned it over, then glanced at me. "Sir, do you have proof?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I slipped my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen. The gate camera footage appeared, clear as day, showing Karen earlier that morning slipping her fake notice into a cheap folder. The timestamp blinked in the corner. The crowd gasped louder this time. A neighbor muttered, "She set him up." Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She tried to grab the phone from my hand, but the shorter cop blocked her path. "Ma'am, step back. Now." Still, she hissed under her breath, "You don't belong here. I'll find a way to get you out. You'll regret this." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Karen, you just made a federal case out of your little HOA war." And for the first time, she didn't have a comeback. The street had gone dead silent. Even the kids who'd been riding bikes a few houses down had stopped. Their handlebars tilted as they stared at Karen shaking with rage. The officers stepped aside, unsure if this was just a neighbor feud or something about to explode. Karen's hands balled into fists. "This is harassment," she screeched. "He's manipulating you. He's dangerous, he threatened me before." That last line made the crowd shift. A few neighbors whispered, some raising their eyebrows at me like they weren't sure what to believe. Karen knew exactly what she was doing, painting me as the villain before anyone could think twice. I didn't even flinch. You're sure about that, Karen? You're really going to double down in front of all these witnesses? She sneered, sensing the doubt around us. Absolutely. He yelled at me. He blocked my driveway. He even tried to push me off my own porch once. The shorter officer turned to me. Sir, do you want to respond to that? I smiled for the first time. Not because it was funny, but because Karen had just stepped straight into my trap. I'd love to, I said, pulling my phone back up. See, I've got cameras everywhere. I swiped again. The screen filled with video after video, Karen storming onto my lawn at midnight, tearing down my wife's flower pots, slipping warning letters under my door, even dragging her trash bins across my driveway to block me in. Each clip had dates, timestamps, and audio, her own voice cursing me out. The crowd gasped louder with each video. A neighbor covered her mouth. One man shook his head and muttered, she's been terrorizing him. Karen lunged forward, screeching, that's illegal. He can't film me without permission. That's when I dropped the next twist, letting my words sink in like a blade. Oh, I can. Because you weren't trespassing on HOA property, Karen. I paused, locking eyes with her. You were trespassing on federal property. The taller officer straightened, his expression tightening. He knew what that meant. Karen blinked fast, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. For once, the queen of the HOA had nothing to say. And just when she tried to stumble backward, hoping to slip out of the mess she created, a black SUV turned the corner, tinted windows rolling down. The crowd hushed again. Because this wasn't just the local cops anymore. The SUV rolled to a slow stop in front of my driveway. The kind of stop that made everyone freeze. The engine cut. And for a second all you could hear was the soft tick of cooling metal. Then the back door opened. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out, his sunglasses catching the afternoon sun. He didn't look at Karen, didn't look at the crowd. His eyes locked straight on me. Karen puffed up her chest, thinking he was her backup. Finally. She cried, pointing at me like she'd just summoned the cavalry. That's him. That's the criminal squatter I told you about. Arrest him. The man lifted one hand. Karen's words choked off in her throat. He turned his head, slowly, toward her. His voice was calm but carried an edge that cut the air like glass. Ma'am, do you have any idea who you're talking about? Karen blinked, confused. What? Yes. He's trespassing. He's pretending to be some kind of judge or whatever. I called for help. This is HOA business. The suited man stepped closer, pulling out his own credentials. The gold emblem caught the light, and the crowd leaned in, gasping again. FBI. Karen's knees wobbled. Wait, you're here for me. The agent didn't answer her. He turned to me instead, giving the faintest nod. Judge, we got your message. We'll take it from here. The crowd erupted in whispers. Neighbors pulled out their phones, recording every second. Karen tried to laugh it off, her voice cracking. This is crazy. He tricked you, too. He doesn't belong here, he's dangerous. But the agent wasn't buying it. He gestured toward the cops, his tone all business now. Officers, secure the scene. We've been monitoring this situation for weeks. False filings. Harassment. Even attempts at property fraud. He glanced back at Karen. She's been on our radar. Karen's face drained of color. Radar. That's not possible. I finally stepped forward. My voice low but sharp enough for every neighbor to hear. Karen, you wanted the HOA to own everything. You thought you could bully me out. But now. It's the federal government that owns you. The crowd exploded, some neighbors actually cheering. Karen stumbled back, shaking her head. No, no, this isn't happening. But the FBI agent was already pulling out the cuffs. Karen staggered as the agent reached for her wrists. But instead of surrendering, she made one last wild move. She spun toward the crowd, pointing and shrieking, "You're all witnesses. He's lying, he's scamming the whole neighborhood. You'll regret siding with him." The neighbors didn't flinch. Phones stayed raised, cameras recording. One woman shouted back, "We've seen what you did, Karen. You've been bullying everyone for years." Another man added, "About time somebody stopped you." Karen's voice cracked. "I am the HOA. You can't arrest me." The FBI agent slid the cuffs onto her wrists with a sharp click. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for fraud, harassment, and impersonating an officer. You have the right to remain silent." She thrashed for a second, screaming at the cops, the neighbors, even at me. But it was useless. The crowd wasn't on her side anymore. The cops guided her into the back of the SUV. And the moment the door slammed shut, the street exhaled like it had been holding its breath. The agent turned back to me. "We'll process her. Expect a clean break from here on out." I nodded. "Appreciate it." As the SUV pulled away, Karen's muffled voice still echoed. Through the glass, screams, fading into the distance until they were gone. The neighbors began clapping, some even cheering, relief spreading like wildfire. I looked around at the faces, then back at my gate. My wife might have left, the HOA might have tried to strip everything from me. But at that moment I knew something deeper. This wasn't just about one house. It was about the principle. About standing your ground when someone tries to rip it from under you. I rested a hand on the fence, my voice steady. Almost to myself, but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I didn't fight for this country just to be told I can't live on my own land. The street went quiet again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was respect. And for the first time in a long time, the neighborhood felt free.